This reading is from Braiding Sweetgrass, the YA version, by Robin Wall Kimmerer. An Invitation to Remember. We are in a time of the seventh fire, a time prophesied by my Anishinaabe ancestors, a sacred time when our shared remembering transforms the world, a dark time and a time filled with light. We can choose to live in the dark or in the light. We remember the oft-used words of resistance. They tried to bury us, but didn't know we were seeds. I invite you to remember another way of being in the world, in kinship. To be in relationship with all living beings are relatives. Often in the Western world, kinship is thought of as only human relatives, but in many indigenous worldviews, kinship includes plants and animals. To remember what may have been buried by the noise of the world and by the commodification of nature. A remembering of knowing you can be good medicine for the land. And I hope a remembering of or an understanding of your gifts, something that is unique to you, and how to share them to contribute to the well-being of the world. The land is the real teacher. All we need as students of the land is mindfulness. Paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world and receiving the teachings with open eyes, open mind, and an open heart. Reciprocity is defined here as a mutual exchange or dependence that benefits both, each and all, but includes mutual responsibilities. I have heard elders give advice like, go among the standing people, or go spend time with the deer people. They remind us that plants and animals can be our caretakers, our healers, our teachers, and our guides. They remind us there are intelligences other than our own. Imagine how less lonely the world would be if we knew and believed that we didn't have to figure everything out by ourselves. Before you begin, the grammar of animacy. The English language is noun-based, which feels somehow appropriate for a culture so obsessed with things. In English, we would never refer to our friends or family as it. Imagine seeing your best friend studying for an exam and saying, "Look, it's studying." That would be rude. But that is how we speak of other beings, such as plants, animals, and the earth herself. I think that is no mistake. English is the language of capitalism. It's the language of objects. And, subtly, or maybe not so subtly, it gives us permission to think about the world as our own property, where we can do whatever we want. It puts the earth outside of our circle of compassion and care, because it's just stuff. Capitalism is also defined here, an economic system in which resources and means of production are privately owned, and prices, production, and the distribution of goods are determined mainly by competition in a free market. In Potawatomi and many other indigenous languages, it is not possible to speak of living beings as it. Sure, we still have words for objects, desk, tractor, phone, but they do not describe anything living. Objects made by humans are inanimate. Indigenous languages have their own grammar of respect, which I refer to as the grammar of animacy. We use words to address the living world, just as we would use for our family, because they are our family. Many of us feel deeply uncomfortable calling the living world it, and yet we don't have an alternative other than he, she, or they. I began to wonder if there were ways to bring animacy into the English language. I asked my Potawatomi language teacher about this, and if we have a word for a living being. Not a thing, a being. He said, yeah, we have a beautiful word, Bimadiziaki, earth life, an earth being. I knew that Bimadiziaki would not slip easily into English, but ki does. Ki describes a being. To make it plural, add an N, making it kin. So when the geese fly overhead, We can say, kin are flying south for the winter. They'll come back soon. Every time we speak of the living world, these pronouns allow us to embody our relatedness to them, our connection to them. There are two words defined at the top of page 13 here: kin, our relatives, all living beings, and cultural appropriation, the disrespectful and unacknowledged adoption of part of a culture or an identity by a member of another culture or identity. While I have some hesitation about using a word inspired by the Potawatomi language, as I don't in any way want to engage in cultural appropriation, I am proposing ki as a new pronoun, a way of remembering our connection and responsibilities to the earth and to all living beings. I'm learning just how widely ki is used in languages around the world. Often referring to life energy, it is also an alternate pronunciation for chi, life force, or life energy. In French, qui is a word for who. In Spanish, it is quien. The grammar of animacy extends beyond the characteristics of the living beings you may be learning about in biology. For example, ki includes rocks, mountains, water, and fire, as well as beings that are imbued with spirit, like our sacred medicines and drums. Even stories are animate. A grammar of animacy could lead us to completely new ways of living in the world, a world with an equality of species, not a domination of one, a world where we have relationships with and a responsibility to water and wolves and one another, a world that recognizes the importance of other species. And it's all in the pronouns. Treatment of Indigenous languages. The Potawatomi and Anishinaabe languages are a reflection of the land and the people. They are a living oral tradition, which had not been written down in their long history until fairly recently. A number of writing systems have emerged to try to capture the language in regularized orthography, but there is no firm agreement on the preeminence of any one among the variants of a large and living language. Potawatomi elder, fluent speaker, and teacher Stuart King has kindly sorted through my rudimentary use of the language, confirming meanings and advising on consistency in spelling and usage. I am most appreciative for his guidance in my understanding of language and culture. The Fierro system's double vowel orthography for writing the language has been widely adopted by many Anishinaabe speakers. Most Potawatomi, however, known as the vowel droppers, do not use Fierro. With respect for speakers and teachers with these different perspectives, I have tried to use the words in the way that they were originally given to me. On Indigenous stories. I am a listener, and I have been listening to stories told around me for longer than I care to admit. I mean to honor my teachers by passing on the stories that they have passed on to me, and have done my best to give credit to who and where those stories came from. We are told that stories are living beings. They grow, they develop, they remember, and they change, not in their essence, but sometimes in their dress. They are shared and shaped by the land, the culture, and the teller. One story may be shared widely and differently. Sometimes only a fragment is shared, showing just one face of a many-faceted story, depending on its purpose. So it is with the stories shared here. Traditional stories are the collective treasures of a people and can't easily be attributed with a literary citation to an individual source. Many are not to be publicly shared, and these I have not included, but many are freely disseminated so that they may do their work in the wider world. For these stories, which exist in many versions, I've chosen to cite a published source as a reference, while acknowledging that the version I share may have been enriched by hearing it multiple times in different tellings. For some, I do not know of a published source for a story passed on in the oral tradition. Chi Miigwech to the storytellers. Treatment of plant names. We accept without question that the names of people are capitalized. To write George Washington, would be to strip that man of his special status as human. It would be laughable to write mosquito if it were in reference to a flying insect, but acceptable if it were discussing the brand of a boat. Capitalization conveys a certain distinction, the elevated position of humans and their creations in the hierarchy of beings. Biologists have widely adopted the convention of not capitalizing the common names of plants and animals unless they include the name of a human being or an official place name. Thus, the first blossom of the spring woods are written as bloodroot, little b, and the pink star of a California woodland is Kellogg's tiger lily, big K. This seemingly trivial grammatical rulemaking, in fact, expresses deeply held assumptions about human exceptionalism, that we are somehow different and indeed better than the other species who surround us. Indigenous ways of understanding recognize the personhood of all beings as equally important, not in a hierarchy, but in a circle. So, in this book, as in my life, I break with those grammatical blinders to write freely of Maple, Heron, and Wally when I mean a person, a human or not, and of Maple, Heron, and human when I mean a category or concept. What is your first memory of being connected to all living beings?